Joining us now is Abigail Spanberger, Democratic nominee for Virginia's 7th Congressional District, running to try to unseat Republican Congressman Dave Brat. Ms. Spanberger, thank you very much for being here tonight. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on, Rachel.
So we've seen this story unfold over just a quick few days. What do you think of the current explanation that we've got now, that the release of this very sensitive document from your time applying as a federal law enforcement officer and a CIA officer, it was all released just as an accident?
Well, that is the explanation that they've given. And frankly, it doesn't remove or change the fact that my document was released in violation of the Privacy Act, and that it was given to this research firm, and that it was later then circulated and provided to journalists. So, you know, I'm incredibly disappointed that this human error, which resulted in a violation of law, so profoundly impacted me. But actually, I am really glad that it came to light, because I want to ensure that this doesn't happen to other people in the future.
As far as you know, in terms of the response that we've had from the administration thus far, have they notified any of the other people who may have been subject to the same kind of breach? They made reference today in their formal statement about this matter that there may be other people whose personnel files, with who knows what's in them, may have also been breached. Do we know if they've made further contact with other people who might have suffered what you did?
I do not know that, no.
Okay. I also want to ask you about a matter of timing here. So the conservative PAC here, these Republican groups that obtain this information, they apparently got this paperwork by accident through a Freedom of Information Act request that should not have been responded to the way it was. As far as I understand it from the New York Times reporting, a firm hired by you to help essentially prepare for your own campaign also filed a Freedom of Information Act request for your own records months and months ago, at the end of last year. And as far as I'm told, the firm working for you that filed that same request for your information still hasn't gotten anything. But this Republican group appears to have had a zip, very quick, less than a month turnaround in terms of how quickly they got their information.
That's correct. It's typical for campaigns to file research requests for themselves. So we hired a firm to research me, and they did submit Freedom of Information Act requests back in December of 2017. And as of right now, we have not received any information either from CIA or from the U.S. Postal Service related to my time as a federal agent or as a case officer with the CIA.
So you asked for this information on yourself. You're waiting 9 months now and you still haven't gotten anything. We know from the timing, as explained by these Republican groups, that they got a response, including your unredacted security clearance application. They had it in hand within 3 weeks of them first making a request. That timing seems nuts. I don't know if you have any explanation or any suspicions about that.
I don't have an explanation for it. I would echo your sentiments. You know, and as you noted in the opening, a FOIA request wouldn't typically, or wouldn't result in receiving an SF-86, which is the National Security Questionnaire, and certainly not an unredacted one, which, as you mentioned, include my full medical history, my social security number, you know, every place I've ever lived, every roommate I've ever had, basically all of the information that you entrust to the federal government when you ask that in exchange they provide you with a security clearance and entrust you with state secrets.
Last question for you here. You are part of what appears to be a real wave of Democratic candidates running this year, particularly first-time candidates who do have a national security background, people with law enforcement, military, intelligence, diplomatic, foreign service background. I wonder if you think that's a coincidence, or if there's something about our politics in this moment, this year, at this time, with Democrats' opportunities, that effort to take back the House, which would really change Washington fundamentally, I think, right now. Is it a coincidence there's so many people with the kinds of backgrounds that you have that are all running right now? Or do you think it's sort of, do you think it's a moment for the Democratic Party right now that we should see as a national trend?
I think it is a national trend. And when you look at the fact that we did have a super PAC that was pushing out my personal information, my security, my social security number, my medical information, you know, in attempts to have some sort of political gain, it speaks to how broken our system is. It speaks to what is wrong with our political system. And I think there are so many of us who have served in various ways, as in the military and the intelligence community and law enforcement, who were driven to serve the mission of protecting this country and upholding the Constitution Constitution. And this situation is just emblematic of how bad things are in politics. And, you know, you expect to be hit with a couple of attack ads here or there, I suppose, but this is just beyond the pale. And what it does and what it signals to anyone who might currently be in federal service, who's filled out an SF-86, a national security questionnaire. You know, I think there's probably people around the country taking pause of what might happen with the information they thought was safe. And so many of us who are running, we're running because we want to stand up for what's right, and we want to get this country back on track and be part of the change of changing not just the tone of the conversation in Washington, but really standing up for the principles of just right and wrong. And the fact that this information was put out in violation of law, either by a human error or otherwise, you know, that was the first mistake. But then the second mistake is that an organization would know that they received this in error, in violation of the law, and would continue to push it out. And so, you know, for those of us who are running, we're running because we want to stand up for what's right and bring our voices to Congress. And I'm excited to be part of this wave because I think this is just one more example of the fact that people with a focus on service to country and mission of upholding the Constitution, that's exactly what we need in Washington at this time.
Abigail Spanberger, former CIA officer, Democrat running for Congress in Virginia, 7th District. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. I'm sorry this has happened to you, but thank you for allowing it to come to light so we can at least put our radar